Like to know how to make repairs that are as good as new or even better than new? When a joint breaks, the usual fix is to add messy globs of glue and the same screws or nails that failed the first time. Well, not anymore. For over 25 years, furniture makers and pro woodworkers have relied on Kreg pocket hole jigs to build and repair furniture. Now, you too can easily fix a broken joint and make it stronger and more permanent than it was before, thanks to the Kreg joinery system. A Kreg pocket hole jig lets you extend the life of broken chairs, frames, bookshelves, drawers, and more. So don't replace what you can easily repair. Do it once, do it right, and move on. And all you need is your drill and a Kreg jig, and you can create rock-solid joints that are built to last. The old way of doing things required clamps and glue. Alignment was difficult, and clamping force always seemed to squeeze out the glue and make a mess. But now, just put the Kreg bit with its stepped pilot tip into any drill, and your Kreg jig makes building as simple as 1, 2, 3. First, clamp down the jig with any clamp. Then drill a quick series of pocket holes at the perfect angle. And finally, drive Kreg's self-tapping screws to pull the two parts together. It's just that simple. With the Kreg jig, you drive hidden pocket holes that provide perfect alignment every time. You'll get ultra-strong joints with no exposed fasteners and no messy glue. You know the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Well, with the Kreg jig, you'll be tempted to fix things all around the house to reinforce weak joints so they'll never break. A Kreg jig can pay for itself fixing broken drawers, wobbly tables, and chairs. Repair it quickly and relax. And be sure to use Kreg's unique self-tapping screws, made for every application, to give you those rock-solid joints that are built to last. Like to know how to avoid the typical measuring, marking, and bad cuts you make with your circular saw? Well, put down that tape measure and pay attention to this, because now you can make those perfect, repeatable cuts in plywood, MDF, and other large sheet goods without measuring or marking cut lines. Thanks to the Kreg Rip Cut Saw Guide. With a Kreg Rip Cut, you can easily make accurate, straight cuts with your circular saw every single time. The Kreg Rip Cut lets you get the most from your circular saw because it's so easy to set up. The whole process can take less than a minute, and you only have to do it once. And the Kreg Rip Cut easily attaches to most every brand of circular saw, and has a reversible guide for both right and left-handers that adjusts quickly and easily to your selected cutting width. Once the rip cut is set, you can make repeated cuts of the same width with no measuring or marking. You'll save time and waste less material, and the guide can be quickly adjusted to another width, and you're back in business. Here's a Kreg tip. Support the sheet goods with rigid foam insulation for cleaner, smoother, safer cuts on workbenches or even the ground. Quality projects all start with perfect cuts, so the Rip Cut Guide should be on every workbench. It's the first tool to buy before building bookshelves, closet organizers, tables, or anything else that requires the use of sheet goods. Trade the difficulties of cutting large pieces on a table saw for laser-straight perfect cuts made easy with a Rip Cut Saw Guide.
Kreg jigs make it incredibly easy to build with wood. That's because Kreg Joinery allows you to assemble projects with screws instead of complicated joints that require advanced skills and expensive tools. The Kreg jig makes this possible, but it's the Kreg screw that makes it all work by holding your pieces together to create a strong, long-lasting joint. Kreg screws are engineered with unique features that ensure they'll provide the best possible results in Kreg pocket hole joinery. One of the easiest ways to see those features is to compare a Kreg screw to a standard screw. Side by side, it's easy to see the differences. For starters, the Kreg screw has a square drive head. The square drive bit fits deeply into the head, which makes it easy to drive the screw. With an ordinary screw, the driver can slip easily, and that can prevent you from driving the screw all the way, or worse yet, strip the screw head. A Kreg screw looks different from an ordinary screw at the other end too. It's what we call a self-tapping tip. The self-tapping tip means that you don't have to drill a pilot hole. Just drive the screw and it creates its own hole without splitting the wood. Try that with an ordinary screw and the results are usually much different. You'll also notice that a Kreg screw doesn't have threads along its entire length like an ordinary screw does. As you drive the screw in, the threads bite into the mating piece. In the pocket hole, the smooth section of the screw can turn freely so the joint pulls together tightly. With an ordinary screw, the threads on the upper portion of the screw can actually prevent the joint from drawing tight. The cutaway helps illustrate one more important feature on the Kreg screw, the flat underside of the screw head. That flat area fits perfectly against the ledge at the bottom of the pocket. As the screw cinches down, this directs all of the screw's force straight in line with the screw and draws the Kreg joint tightly together. With an ordinary screw, the flare shape of the head directs force outward as the screw cinches down. This can prevent a tight joint and even split out the base of the pocket hole. There's one important feature of a Kreg screw that you can't see just by looking at it. It's case hardened. Kreg screws are treated to have a hard outer shell that gives them toughness, sharp threads, and a head that doesn't strip out. But case hardening allows the inner part of the screw to be a bit softer. That's actually good because a softer core prevents the screws from being brittle, which can cause ordinary screws to snap. Looking at all those features, it's easy to see why your Kreg projects demand Kreg screws. And now when you look at a Kreg screw, you know how it works.
Remember when you had to smooth out those joists? When you needed to easily fix a stubborn door or make two uneven boards flush? Now you can do all this and more with the Win electric hand planer. The 6-amp motor provides up to 34,000 cuts per minute through even the hardest of woods. While most of our competitors have a maximum depth of 5/64 of an inch, the Win planer exhibits 16 positive stops in 1/128th inch increments to fine-tune your cuts anywhere up to 1/8 of an inch deep. The Win electric hand planer also comes with a handy dust collection bag that can be attached to either the right or left-hand side of the planer, an adjustment wrench with onboard storage, a kickstand to protect your blade, a rabbiting guide to help measure the depth of your rabbets, and a parallel fence for making perfectly straight cuts. The base of the plate even has a V-shaped groove to help make chamfering the corners of your wood easier than ever. And if you have a dust extractor, you can plug it right into either side of your unit to maximize the collection of sawdust and keep your work area clean. Remember when you had a reliable planer that gave you years of quality service?
The concealed hinge jig from Kreg offers a fast, reliable, easy-to-use solution that anyone can use to install doors on cabinets or built-ins, or to refresh kitchen cabinets with new updated doors. That's because the concealed hinge jig makes it easier than ever to mount concealed hinges that give doors a clean, uncluttered look. And the jig lets you do it with the accuracy of a drill press, but using nothing more than an ordinary drill. The jig makes the process easy, thanks to indexing cams and built-in measuring scales that ensure exact hinge cup positioning, plus a removable guide for the included carbide-tipped bit. Using the concealed hinge jig makes it simple to figure out the two main things required for mounting these hinges: determining how far from the door edge the hinge needs to be located and how far the hinges sit from the top or bottom of the door. How far from the door edge the hinge sits is called the offset, and the measurement varies depending on the hinge type and brand. Usually, you just have to read the hinge instructions, measure, and hope for the best. But the concealed hinge jig has indexing cams that take out all of the guesswork and uncertainty. Just turn the cams to the appropriate setting and the jig will be perfectly positioned when you place it against the edge of the door. That means all you have to do is use the concealed hinge jig's measuring scale to position the hinge at the desired distance from the top or bottom of the door. Clamp the jig in place and the hinge cup hole will be positioned correctly every time. After the cup hole is correctly located, you still need to drill a clean hole to the proper depth. Doing that usually requires a drill press and a specialized bit. The concealed hinge jig comes with a high-quality carbide-tipped 35mm bit that's specifically designed for the task. The bit shears the wood cleanly without tear out for perfect holes time after time. To ensure the hole is straight, that bit rides in a drilling guide that locks quickly and accurately into the jig. A stop collar ensures correct hole depth every time too. Once the cup is drilled, the concealed hinge jig makes it just as easy to drill the holes for the hinge mounting screws. Just remove the drilling guide and use the two holes in the jig to guide an ordinary 1/16 inch drill bit. Unclamp the concealed hinge jig and the hinge drops into place and mounts accurately every time, whether you're installing hinges on one door or adding new doors to an entire kitchen. That means all you have to do is mount the door to your cabinet and the job is done confidently, quickly, and with professional quality results using just a drill with a concealed hinge jig.